Hello everyone, welcome to the Twaba Pamo Gospel Show. My name is Modifa, your host for this show. And of course, like any other time, we have another awesome guest that is joining me today. He is the overseer of Yahweh Ministries. I'm talking about Pastor Mfula. So do well to follow us on the social media on our social media platforms. That is the Twaba Pamo Gospel Show page on Facebook, and also subscribe to Twaba Pamo Gospel Show on YouTube, and we'll be very, very glad to hear from you. So like I said earlier, I'm joined by Pastor Mfula. So glad to have him with me as my guest. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I'm also glad to see you.
Thank you. I was looking forward to this time.
All right. So how is Yahweh Ministries? How is it going?
Well, by God's grace, we are seeing God's hand and His faithfulness on a daily basis. We're growing from one day to another.
Okay. All right. So first things first. This is a question like almost so many people want to ask a pastor. How did you know that ministry is what you should do?
Wow, interestingly, I think from where I'm seated, I never thought I would one day become a pastor or do ministry for the rest of my life. Why? Because I think every child that is born and that is maturing has ambitions of what they want to become in life. Until there's such a time when I met God and there was ambitions of what I'm called to do, and that had took all that I needed to do and forget about whatever I was going to do, and so I had to respond. So like I tell people, I think if God has a stubborn children, I'm one of those children.
Okay.
I'm not just one person that would hear an inch in my ears or a scratch and then I start moving. I usually want to get details. So the question is, how did I know that ministry was my life? There was a moment in my life that I think God, knowing me, a stubborn child of his, had to take away some of the privileges in my life. Like where he had to, at one time in life, he had to leave me homeless for me to just hear from him. So it so happened that I was coming from work this particular day. By the way, that I'd already gotten born again. So I was coming from work, and then my brother, now the wife sent me to say, can you go and pick up some bread at the shop? Now I'm coming from a painting job, and then I'm dirty, I'm in overalls, and I have to walk out like that. I'm not at work, so I had to give an excuse, say, okay, my sister, can I just go and change, maybe have a shower? Then for her, she took offense with it. She just got in the bedroom and then come and told the husband whatever had happened, and then the husband, without finding out what really took place, he just came and said, young man, you're of age, I'm giving you a week to leave my house.
And how old were you at that time?
I think I should have been 17.
17?
17, yes.
She was your sister?
My sister.
Biological sister?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, and I tried to inquire, and at times God will keep quiet as if he's not listening. So he gets your attention. So it's from there that the journey began. I remember in the night, I was asking God, Lord, from here, where to? And then he gave me a word in my spirit. It says, Voice of Nations. So I said, oh, Voice of Nations. Yeah. So he said, that kept on coming. I think, and one of the things I think I struggle with is the manner in which prophetic ministry is being handled. So from that whisper, I went for a meeting, and this woman, upon me entering that meeting, she just came and gave me a big hug, and she began to weep. And as before I could realize what was going on, I was overwhelmed by love. And after the weeping, I think it took about 5 to 10 minutes, we were just weeping uncontrollably. Then through the Spirit of God, she began to confirm certain things concerning ministry. And she began to say, God has called you, but you've been running away.
Oh, that was when you were still 17?
Yes,
Wow.
Yes. So from that, of course, life had brought in its own issues. about it, but then at the age of 20, I had no choice but to respond.
Wow. At the age of 20, so from when you're 17 years old to 20, you just kept resisting.
Exactly.
So what made you get to a point where you said, I think, let me just go for this. God has spoken enough. Let me not be Jonah.
Wow. Interestingly, it was a time when I went into business. I found a friend who said, okay, here is a 6,000. Can we go into a business? And then we agreed. So we needed to do a chicken business. We did the first bunch. The second bunch, the third bunch, 300 chickens. And I was asking
300 died.
300.
How did they die?
Died.
How did they die? What really caused their death?
All right. At that particular night, it poured.
Okay.
Cats and dogs. It was raining everywhere. And, the wind came and blew away the roof. So all of them got drowned. And so 2 days later, we were kicked out of the place we were renting a chicken run. And as I was walking back to town, God told me, if you continue this bad behavior, you'll continue experiencing this. Okay?
Wow.
So now from that point, I realized this thing is more serious than I thought. And so I had to humble myself before the Lord and give up my pride. This
Okay.
is what has taken us over.
So how did the transition happen? You were there, you now decided to give yourself. How did you go about it?
This is a story that is already known. You already know what you are running away from. So by that time, I think I was attending a particular church in Lusaka West, and so I began to ask those that had gone ahead of me to how to go about it. And graciously enough, by the grace of God, I was guided through, and then I was able to realize, okay, this is what I want to do.
Okay, so maybe there's somebody listening to us right now and they're wondering, what does it take to be called? How do I know that I'm called? Are there any signs that show that indeed you've been called to do ministry?
God speaks to us differently. When you look at Elijah at one particular time, because he got used to God's voice, and so he got to a place where he said, okay, I know God. After the drama at the mountain of Moriah, God comes in a still small voice. It's so different. God speaks us in a different way. Other people God has used men of God. Other people God has used dream. I'm one of the people that God used dream. So God will speak to us in a different way. What is important is to be sensitive and get to know how God speaks to you. That will be of help to us a lot.
All right, so I'm talking to Pastor Mfula, and we've been discussing his life so far until when he got into ministry. So let us take a short break, and then we'll get to talk deeper about his ministry, and let's see what we're going to pick from it. We'll be back.
Asumbula ishina lyenu mwatufwile twalulwa lisumbulwe ishina lyenu mwatufwile twalulwa lisumbulwe ishina lenu mwatufwile twalulwa. We are the Favored Sisters, and you are watching Twaba Pamo Gospel Zambia.
And we are back with Pastor Mfula, of course, discussing much about his life and also about the Yahweh Ministries. And you've told us about how it was like for you before, finally getting into ministry. Now, we would love to know, how was it like for you? Was the path smooth?
Well, it's never been smooth. I believe, I think I was just talking to somebody this morning whom I told greatness is expensive. It's expensive in such a way that it runs your entire life. And ministry is such an expensive road that comes. It's not been all rosy. I remember when God spoke to me to say, I need you to start what I've called you to. By the way, I've served more my life than I've been a pastor.
Okay.
I've been pastoring our ministries, and this is our 9th year now.
9th year?
Yes.
Wow.
But it has been more serving and serving other ministers of the gospel as well. So,
But maybe shed more light on that. How?
when I answered the call of God, I was not experienced. And so, like I already alluded to, I'm one person that doesn't just jump into things. I needed to learn from people that have gone ahead of me. And I think that's the challenge that we have today. Because we have children that wants to jump into ministry. I want to say this, I avoided certain mistakes because I had to sit down and learn.
Yes.
Yeah, so it has helped a lot. And getting back to how it has been, it's been rough. One of the things that I think I've suffered from as a minister of the gospel is rejection and also backbiting. Those things are found in church, apparently. And I think I've come to grow to know that church is not for the perfect. Church is for the people that are being molded into Christ-like. I think that's what the Bible says. So I was in Namibia when God began to speak, telling me to come back home and do what He had called me to do. And truthfully speaking, I was a bit comfortable in Namibia.
In Namibia, you're doing ministry there.
No,
You're running.
I just gone, a friend of mine called me to say, okay, wavutika maningi, can you come and rest as you do ministry?
Yes.
You know, by then Yahweh ministry hadn't started. So I traveled there, and 4 months into Namibia, I'm settling down, and I began to think, I'm right, I'm not going back to Zambia. The Lord says, I have work for you. You know, just that is a struggle enough. You know,
I can imagine.
You're thinking, where will I start from? If I go back, where will I start from? But eventually, like I've already said, I'd learned to obey. I didn't want to go into trouble because I was a Jonah put it. So I came back, and we tried all we could. Apparently, I had no option but to go in a classroom.
A classroom.
We started church from there, but we are no longer in the classroom.
Amen.
There was that determination to see God's work grow.
Okay, so but were you married by then?
Apparently, everything happened in the same year.
Okay.
I was in Namibia, and God told me, go back home. Then when I came, I told God, first I will not start ministry until I marry.
Why did you make such a? Why did you tell God that?
Very simple. I said earlier, I have learned the certain mistakes that others have made in life. So I wanted to avoid that. Knowing who I am, I knew the moment I get entangled or locked up, the chances of me messing up are very little. Yeah, so I had to do that. So church started in 2013 June, and then we got married on November 30th, the same year.
Okay, wow, that was. So when did you meet her?
I met my wife in 2009.
2009.
Yeah, so even when I traveled to Namibia, I'd already set up my mind. Even if I was to settle in Namibia, I was going to make sure she comes.
She comes there.
Because we had already gotten into an agreement to say, okay, it's a journey of life.
Okay. Wow, something interesting. But how did you know that this is just the woman I should marry? This is the woman that will help me through, especially at the time that was that crucial. You know, you thought you had settled, and then God was telling you go back, and you decided to marry. What was really happening? Why did you have this confidence in this particular woman?
Well, it was a dramatic moment. Like I'm saying, I in 2009. I think I'd just come out. I think I was called to open up today. I just came from a broken relationship.
Oh, okay.
You know, and for me, I told myself, okay, this thing doesn't work. Okay, then I remember I think I had some work which were going on in City Market, and of course, that should be another episode of how I met my wife.
Yes.
Yeah, so I
We'll
was
definitely
walking
get
to,
you on
I was
that one
walking
next
to
time.
my stand, City Market. Then I heard, back then, if you remember, there were those megaphones which were at City Market. Yeah, so I heard this lady praying early in the morning around 6. And then what caught my attention was not her voice. What caught my attention, I was telling within myself, I say, I need to go and preach there.
Wow.
That's my first thought when I heard her praying in the morning. So I went in and I told my friends, guys, I need to know where this sound comes from. So somebody showed me to say it's in green section. So I went there, found this welcoming woman, and she gave me a platform at the first meeting. So I said, okay, now you can preach. So to cut the long story short, I fell in love without knowing. By the
Without
time
knowing.
I realized, everything had happened, but that's how we're here.
That's why you're here. And what role has she played? Because you are just starting and you got married. What role has she played to make you the pastor that you are now?
One of the things that people don't know is who pastors the pastor, who shepherds the shepherd. Because you see, I usually say this in church to say, the reason I'm so powerful, sounding anointed when I preach, is because somebody pampered energy in me.
Wow.
And you see, a lot of people don't realize and don't appreciate pastors' wives because they think it's only the pastor who is anointed. But you see, imagine I'm walking off to church and this woman starts knocking and shouting. Will I be effective? So I call her my pastor of pastors.
Wow.
She pastors me, I pastor the church.
Wow.
So she plays a very important role in my life.
Yeah.
And like I would have said, if I was asked, I would say, if she was not playing any role, I would have not been here ministering effectively like we are.
Wow. Okay, that is really, really inspiring. That's a superwoman there. All right, so much respect to her. Now, you talked about some time back, I think when we just had a background chat, you talked about, the attendance in churches and how much energy you're putting in. You want people to come to church, you invite people and they don't show up. COVID came in with its disadvantages as well. How did you still manage to put yourself together?
I think it takes about, I'll say this, ministry is not feelings. Ministry is conviction. So what has helped me to run through and stand through at this particular time is a conviction that I have. Remember, I've already said I'm not a person that is easily taken. I make sure, so it had to take God to convince me that this is what I'm to live for. So it's the conviction that one has that will keep them flowing. Secondly, passion. Like you said, you invite people, they're not coming. What gives you the zeal to go and visit them even when they did not turn up? It's the passion and the conviction that you have that God has called you to do this.
Wow, that is quite something. Okay, now we talk about a life of a pastor just briefly after this break. So we'll be back on the other side. So we just get to talk about his life. I know there's so many questions that people have. I mean, how does a pastor survive? How do they live their lives? So we'll just get into that, of course, with Pastor Mfula as our focus. Welcome back, and of course today on the Trawa Pamo Gospel Show, I'm joined by Pastor Mfula, and we're talking everything ministry. All right, now you told us about how it has been like. Now we want to focus on you as a pastor. A lot of people, do talk about pastors just eating people's money. We hear a lot of these things sometimes. They just eat people's money, or pastors are just there for the sake of the fame, the respect and the money, because people get to tithe and everything. How has it been like for you? Is your life pulpit full time, or maybe you engage into other businesses? How is it for you?
One of the things that people need to understand, I don't think there is a pastoral part-time. Why? Because it's an assignment. It's a life you live. But then I'll answer it in a layman's way. When we talk about full time, does it mean someone is engaged into other entrepreneurial work and so forth? I would say that if we to go into giving testimonies of how faithful God has been to us, we would spend the whole day here. But of course, one of the things, like I've already alluded to, one has to have the conviction. It's not every day that we receive those tithes. It's not every day that offerings comes in. So the question is, how does one survive? Ministry, like I said, is in stages. There is a time that a pastor has to grow the ministry. And I always tell our pastors at church, at that particular time, get something to do. Okay? When you're at a place where you have to grow ministry, it requires of your finances. It requires of your emotions and so forth. So at that particular time, I always encourage pastors to find what to do. Here is a situation where I'm not usually at church. Maybe I spend most my time, let me say my time at church on Wednesdays and so forth. Or let me say a person who is having a church in classroom. Where do they do the rest of the ministry? I believe one can take advantage of that. Can do other businesses. Now coming to me, asking what am I doing? I'm in full-time ministry. I'm a full-time pastor with an office at church. Right? Despite that, that does not stop me from engaging into business. Because at the end of the day, my wife has to survive. My children has to go to school. And so like I'm saying, we are not at a place where I need to resign from other work and be able to concentrate on ministry. Because right now, ministry is demanding of me, even finances at times. And we do that. And I tell people that if there is any pastor who loves what they do, they are the greatest giver in that church.
Oh, wow. That is really something that is very, very powerful. Okay, so somebody might be listening to us right now, with the Pentecostal arrangement. Personally, before I came into the Pentecostal, Before I came into the Pentecostal arrangement, I belonged to, a traditional church, and it was really something because, you get to meet a lot of people that say this deliverance, this prophetic, all these things are not real, mainly because a good number of people have not really encountered God, they've never had. But what really, based on your experience, what would you tell somebody who does not believe in the presence of God, or that believe that thing is really real? Others still criticize tongues. They say there is really nothing like that. What message would you have for such a one?
One thing is the church is prophetic. Okay, so one has to understand that the kingdom of God is prophetic. But one thing that I will say with confidence is that encounters are never taught. Encounters are experienced. Such a person is saying such things don't exist. It's because they've not experienced. The moment they will experience, I can tell you, they will come and tell you that they were missing out.
Wow.
A lot of believers, a lot of people, let me say, don't really have a revelation and understanding. I at one time I served in a church which believed so much in deliverance, and I believe that God uses me so much in that line. But you see, I think it's a way that certain things are being handled that are bringing ridicule to the name of the Lord.
Okay.
But one, I can say this without blinking: deliverance is real.
Wow.
Witchcraft, Satanism is real. Demons are real, the same way as the Holy Spirit is real.
Wow, the best comparison. Thank you so much. And finally, your final words, to young ministers. People are so desperate for the pulpit these days. We see Facebook has got ministers, we've got people who made a church with their followers on Facebook, and then others are doing all sorts of activities that are happening in the body of Christ. But what advice do you have for a young minister?
This is my 17th year as a pastor. And one of the things that I've learned through time is, as a young minister, never stop learning. We grow through learning. And we have people nowadays who are saying, I'm the prophet, I'm the apostle, and what can you tell me? I believe I'm seated here because I'm well guided. Number one, surround with people that will rebuke you. This is what is missing in the Christianity, in the Pentecostal circles. We surround ourselves with people that are yes oneers, people that are saying, okay, you are doing well. But you need in your life somebody that will tell you this which you are doing will kill you. And as people are watching us, this is what I have to say. Surround yourself with people that, number one, will not just clap for you, but people that will tell you when you are wrong and they'll be able to rebuke you. Secondly, learn to find a place of service. Listen to this. A ministry is not a place. We are not in ministry to look for a place to shine. We are in ministry to look for a place to serve.
Wow. Okay, so finally, as a man of God, I'm sure there's what society expects from you. You know, there's what society expects. I'm sure that's why you mentioned the backbiting, the gossiping. As a man of God, sometimes that might not really sit well, and it can be a challenge for your ministry. But then, how do you uphold your integrity?
One of the things is knowing God. You see, if I don't love anything, it will be very difficult for me to live for it and to fight for it. So one of the things that has helped me maintain my ministry is my love for God. Secondly, the love for people. We are not into this work for profit. We are into this for service. And I always say that service to man is to God, is service to mankind.
Wow, thank you so much for coming through. We have learned a lot. I have learned a lot, and I'm sure our viewers have learned a lot from this interaction. So this is where we end today's edition of the Twaba Pamo with the Pastor Mfula, who got to share with us about his ministry and also about his personal life, not forgetting his love life briefly. But that's been an awesome interaction, of course. Make sure that you subscribe and also get to follow us on Facebook. That's on Twaba Pamo Gospel Zambia. And we'll be so very glad to hear from you. I have been Modifa, your host, and until next time.